I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims. All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
It is also time to move on to the defensive interior. As soon as I find that graphic, there it is. So who are some inside guys that you like? Because I know we talked about this yesterday, and some don't think that defensive tackle is a need for this team or that it's not a premium position. I personally disagree. I think that pass rusher, period, is a premium position. I think if you can do that from the inside while being an every down player, I think that you have an advantage that's greater than any really in football, because it's almost impossible to stop a dominant defensive tackle. And when you actually look at the Patriots, they're very top heavy without really any developmental depth outside of Jaquelin Roy, who only has one more season on his deal. You got Christian Barmore. We have no idea what his status is. History of knee issues. You've also got the blood clots, huge mystery there. And then Devon Godshaw, he's going to be a free agent after 2025. And on top of that, he's also exclusively a run stopper. Patriots are going to be playing more 4-down fronts consistently. It's kind of tough to justify not having guys who can get after the passer. So I really do think that's going to be a position that they end up having to address at some point in the draft and in free agency. So who are some guys that stand out to you to potentially fill some of these gaps, especially in terms of developmental pieces?
Yeah, look, I think it's a need. I don't know that I would address it at 4 unless we find out Barmore's not playing anymore, but I do think it's a need, both in terms of pass rushers and run stoppers. But Taylor, you know there's one guy I got to go to here when we're talking about this, and that is Deon Walker from Kentucky. Big number 0. So you guys know, like, I get all hot and bothered with the oversized athletic defensive tackles. Like Jordan Davis might be a top 3 draft prospect I've ever studied. And Deon Walker's he's not Jordan Davis. Like, I'm not going there, but 6'6", 350, and he gets after the quarterback. He is so athletic for his size. He plays the game. He plays the game violently. You put him next to Christian Barmore, and you're really cooking with gas here. I also think he's a player that, while he's not the best run defender right now, can probably grow into a serviceable run stopper. He's not going to be Vince Wilfork, but I think he, you'd still want to have that Devon Godshaw, that nose tackle on your roster. But if you need some help in a pinch, I think he can be a guy that can contribute there. He had a rough year this year. He was projected to be like a top 20 pick. He had a rough year. I know there's some questions maybe about his buy-in, his commitment, but the talent's undeniable. And if he interviews well, right, if he clears the interview, I think he's a guy worth taking at 38. They need to beef up the trenches. He's a guy that can do that. He can be a real chess piece. And for everybody talking about Mason Graham, and I get it, Mason Graham's an unbelievable player. He's an elite prospect. Mason Graham or, whoever, Will Campbell, plus an extra top 50 pick, and you still end up with Deon Walker, that package as a whole is probably better.
Yes.
So if you're somebody who is really into the idea of Mason Graham because you think that's a major need, I think you can get a hell of an impact from Deon Walker and end up with more in a trade down. So I really like him. The other guy I'd mention is Ty Robinson from Nebraska. Physical player, mean player, comes with some of those intangible leadership qualities. He's probably a hybrid tackle end, which is also kind of intriguing. Little bit of Lawrence Guy-ish, where you can play him on the inside on early downs, and then play him on the inside on passing downs. Early downs, he's probably more of an end run stopper.
Like a Dietrich Wise type, you mean?
Yeah, he's bigger. He's like 6'6", 310. So he's more stout.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah,
he doesn't look like he's 310. I thought he was like 290-ish.
Well, he's listed at 310. We'll see.
Oh, okay,
you might be right. But I think he's a guy that, can be a 3-4 end, can be a 4-3 tackle. And it's just going to give you, he's not a guy that, what's the best way to put it? Like, he's not a guy that you're going to move easily. He's not the most attacking player. Like Deon Walker is an attacking player. Ty Robinson is more, he's going to make the plays that are there to be made, which isn't, I know it's not the most exciting, but he's a projected day 3 pick. And how many plays were there to be made up front last year that they didn't make? So just getting a guy like that, I would almost say, how I like to tier the guys, right? So you have Mason Graham as day 1, Deon Walker is kind of day 2 Mason Graham. Ty Robinson would be more like a day 3 Jack Sawyer to me. He's not quite as explosive as Sawyer. He's not quite as athletic, but he's going to be a physical force. He's going to be somebody that offenses have to account for.
That is a really interesting one there. Ty Robinson, he just feels like a very I think I saw somebody say it in the comments, and I was really glad that you actually brought him up. And then with Deion Walker, we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
With Mason Graham, if they're stuck at 4, I'm very okay if they end up taking Graham, because I do think he's going to end up being like the most dominant player in that top group, assuming that like Travis Hunter's gone, Abdul Carter's gone, and we're living in that world. If they trade down, I'm all fine with that, because I do think there's so many, especially in the top 100, even if you can get another like top 120 pick and the top 100 pick, I think that's where you can get some really, really good value in those rounds, pretty much like every year. My list, I've got Walter Nolan. He's a very interesting prospect for me. He was former 5-star recruit, has no major injuries throughout his career. And looking at all the profiles on him, a lot of these, like, I haven't had time to watch a ton of these guys as much as I want to. So a lot of what I have is on profiles. That's what makes it even more fun, actually being at the Senior Bowl, because I'll get to watch them. You get a lot of first impressions, like face to face. But on Bleacher Report, the overall they have on him, all the tools to be a starter within his first 2 years in the NFL, and he has Pro Bowl and All-Pro potential down the line. Schematically, he's versatile as someone who can line up as a 3 technique in even fronts or play as a 4-eye technique in odd fronts. Now, again, this may not be a glaring area of need, this specific role, if Christian Barmore does end up returning. But if he doesn't, and you don't get a Milton Williams, again, having those disruptive presences, especially in the middle, it's just, if it's an edge rusher, it's a little bit easier to block those guys. You can chip them, you can do all that. The middle, it's tough. You can assign to help, but then if it's an obvious pass rush situation and you just say, all right, we're putting 6 guys on the line, everyone's got a one-on-one matchup, then you're in a really tough spot as a quarterback. So I really like his profile. Also, Joshua Farmer, interior guy out of Florida State, 2nd-team All-ACC, 6'3", 318 pounds. He's powerful, he's quick. He can work in gaps, got good hands, and he's versatile. He can move around. Now, pad level, conditioning, anchor are the issues. But both with Farmer and with Walker, the biggest benefit and the thing that gets me excited is you have Tayler Williams now. I feel like defensive line is one of the positions where most commonly it's like, you just need somebody to get all this potential out of him, and then he's really going to explode. Because a lot of the time, you're like taking shots as a defensive lineman. If you don't want to play the run, it just is very glaringly obvious if you're just out there to get after the passer. So sometimes these guys need a mentor to kind of just set them along the right path, kind of change their mentality, while also getting the most out of them physically. Everything we've heard about Tayler Williams is he's a fantastic teacher, a great mentor, on top of being, as Mike Vrabel described him, and Dan Cable, the best defensive line coach in the NFL. So those projects become much more appealing, and you hope you can get more like Christian Barmore's, where there were struggles early on, but he finally kind of clicked, and then he became this just game-wrecking presence that we were hoping he would be.
Support us and sign up at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the app today and use code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5.